Stop the investigation. South Korea's acting president refuses to extend the probe into a corruption scandal that led to the impeachment of the country's leader. What's behind his decision? Will it wrap up or deepen the crisis? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zeidan. South Korea's acting president says prosecutors need to end their investigation into impeached President Park Geun-Hye. They won't even have the chance to question her in person. But did Hwang Kyo-ahn make this decision to help Park or to help himself? He says it's neither. He says the investigation must end so the country can move on. But opposition leaders say Hwang is trying to speed along the impeachment process so he can be officially elected as president. We'll get to our guests in just a moment, but first, Harry Fawcett sets up the discussion from Seoul.
Well, a day of two significant developments in this wide-ranging political scandal that has dominated news in this country for so many months. Firstly, the acting president, Hwang Kyo-ahn, has decided not to extend the special prosecution. It could have been extended by an extra month, this investigation into this scandal. He says, or through his spokesman anyway, that doing so could have influenced a potential election within the next couple of months, that in the interest of political stability, now is the time to end it, and public prosecutors could take over if need be. The special prosecutors have called that highly regrettable, saying they haven't yet been able to fully investigate the entire scope of this scandal. The opposition parties are also angry, three of them at least, saying that the acting president himself should be impeached, as well as President Park Geun-Hye. Speaking of her impeachment, this here at the Constitutional Court is the final hearing in the case, which will judge whether the National Assembly's decision in December to impeach her was valid or not. Her own lawyers have been arguing, reading out a statement from her saying that she apologized for her mistakes, that she did pass some information to Choi Sun-sil, her longtime friend, but this is information that would have been made public within a couple of days, that it was really for communications advice that she had relied on her, not in some way outsourcing government decision-making to someone outside of any official government office. As for the National Assembly's lawyers, they've been listing the various charges against her, saying that companies felt forced into donating large sums of money to Choi Sun-sil because of the presidential authority behind her, going through the list of other allegations against her as well. The question is whether they've really provided enough evidence. President Park's lawyers are saying no, they haven't, and that the judges have to decide based on the letter of the law, not on the basis of competing public sentiments.
Now, the scandal surrounding Park and Choi has been going on for months. Protests began in October when Park was accused of letting Choi interfere in important state affairs, with many calling on Park to resign. A few weeks later, Choi was charged with abuse of authority, coercion and attempted fraud. The South Korean parliament voted to impeach Park in December. The Constitutional Court will decide on the matter next month. Now, prosecutors have arrested at least 10 people, including Samsung's Vice President Jae-Wook, and South Koreans continue to protest nearly every week. Let's bring in our guests into the show. They're all joining us from Seoul. Hwang Jae-Wook, law professor at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies in Seoul. Jean Lee, Global Fellow with the Wilson Center think tank. She specializes in Korean affairs. And Si Kim, a geopolitics and economics consultant. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Let me start with Mr. Kim. Why do you think the acting president decided to stop the investigation? Was it a political decision, do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, this special prosecutor is a very special case. There is standard prosecution process, and Korea has standing special prosecution law. But they enacted this Special Prosecutors Act so that they could appoint only the prosecutor recommended by the opposition party. And now, that was for 70 days, and it's coming at the end of this month. Now, whether it should be extended or not is, I don't know whether it's a political or legal decision, but there's no obligation to extended. Anyway, the constitutional hearing will be ending next Monday. So I don't know what this special prosecutor's role is in connection with the prosecution. This is not the end of the probe. Probe can continue on under the normal prosecution process or special prosecution, which is standing. You can continue to do it. So to think this is the end of the probe is a mistake.
All right, let me take that point, though, to Mr. Chung. I think what Mr. Kim is getting at there was the suggestion that you do hear from some people that perhaps the special prosecutor process, that was the one that was politicized, and this kind of gets it back on track.
Well, let me unpack that on two levels. On one hand, I think acting President Hwang Kyo-ahn, I think he himself is under a lot of political pressure. Do keep in mind that during the 4 years of Park presidency, Mr. Hwang has been both the Minister of Justice as well as the Prime Minister. So his own role in the Park administration is intimately connected to this whole affair. I mean, he himself has not been investigated yet, but I'm sure he might have some skeletons in the closet as well. As for the special probe that Mr. Kim just referred to, I think there's a bit of a debate about what the exact statutory interpretation is. It's not 100% clear whether acting President Hwang had the discretion to extend the special probe or whether he was under obligation to extend the probe. There's some debate within among the lawyers reading the statute. So let me leave it at that.
All right, it is a highly politicized question, isn't it, Jean? I mean, the whole issue is a political scandal. How do you read the bottom line here? Is this an attempt by the acting president to find an exit for the impeached president, or an attempt to extricate himself? Or how do you see it?
You know, this has been political from top to bottom, from start to finish. This is pure politics. It's factional politics. Regardless of the decision, what was behind the decision, the opposition is certainly going to paint this as a political move. They're going to try to use it in whatever way they can. Now, I can tell you what will be complicated is if the opposition does push ahead and try to impeach him as well. We will certainly, if we thought we had a power vacuum before, we will certainly have one if he is impeached. But we can certainly estimate that the politics will continue to happen on both sides.
There is a lot of politics in there. Let's try and refocus again on the question of the investigation and the justice system. Chung, at this point, do we know, okay, the acting president has said stop the investigation, but where does the evidence stand? Do we know if there's enough evidence, Chung, at this point to uphold the impeachment of President Park?
I believe so. I mean, the Constitutional Court has basically looked at the issues and made a determination there are basically 5 issues to look at. But I think that one of the strongest case against President Park is abuse of power, especially with respect to freedom of expression. Now it's been widely publicized, and a couple of key government officials have been arrested, where almost 10,000 people, people working in film industry, in the music industry, have been blacklisted, and it seems to have come directly from the Blue House itself. And I think that based on the comments made by the Constitutional Court justices, I think they are pretty much convinced that this definitely has happened, and the responsibility can be attributed to President Park.
Okay, if that's the case, Mr. Kim, do you think, is there any chance that this Constitutional Court is not going to uphold the impeachment? What's your reading?
Well, that is very difficult for me to say. In the first place, the Korean Constitution has very vague statement as to what constitutes impeachment. The clause that is, I guess, Article 65 of Constitution merely says President, as well as some other officials, can be impeached for violation of Constitution and other laws in performing their duties. It does not say what kind of laws. So if you really extend it, you pass the red lights or Jae-Wook, it is a violation of law. Does that constitute the impeachable crime? That has not been clearly defined. Therefore, the whole process is left to very much of the judgment of the judges who decide whether whatever the president did, right or wrong, is impeachable such that president should be removed. This is going to be judgment call, and I don't know how they're going to judge what. In case of No Moo-hyun, they saw enough of violations of law, but they said in their judgment they were not serious enough to remove him from the president's office, and therefore he was not impeached, sanctioned at the Constitutional Court. And how anybody is going to decide whatever President Park did is impeachable enough or not, it's not for me to say. And I don't even know whether she is exactly being accused of the evidence has not been known. A lot of that is just press talk at this point, and I have to see what they finally say.
All right, Jean, there, a slightly different take between Mr. Kim and Chung on the question of how much evidence and how clear it is whether or not she's done anything impeachable. What's your take, and what more do you think prosecutors were hoping to investigate by asking for more time?
Well, I'd actually like to go back to another point, which is the possibility that there's a technical issue with the impeachment trial. And I would love to hear from the two gentlemen on the panel who know far more about me on this. Now, from my understanding is that for an impeachment trial, all 9 justices on the bench need to hear the trial. We've already lost one. We've had one, the Chief Justice retired earlier this year. We've got the acting Chief Justice set to retire in a few weeks. We do need to have 7 of the justices attend the impeachment trial, and at least 6 of them need to vote in favor of impeachment. So could we be running up against a technical issue here if this isn't wrapped up in a decision doesn't come down in 2 weeks?
That's an interesting question. Let's take it to our professor of law here. So, Chung, what do you make of that? Do we have a full judicial bench? And even if we do, is it clear? Is the law really clear on what is an impeachable crime?
So just to give you a quick background, the Korean Constitutional Court is composed of 9 justices, but 1 justice just retired back in January. So now they've been carrying on with 8 justices. And it's absolutely right. Another justice is set to retire in about 2 weeks' time, actually. But because the hearing wrapped up today, we fully expect the Constitutional Court to be able to render a decision within 2 weeks. So basically, we're looking at an 8-justice court. Now, the only requirement about rendering a decision comes from the Constitutional Court law itself, as well as the Constitution. The Constitutional Court law actually says the quorum shall be no less than 7 justices. So they have 8, so that quorum requirement is met. With respect to the Constitution says that impeachment can be upheld only with the affirmative vote of 6 justices. So with the 8 justices, if at least 6 of them say yes, impeachment should be upheld, then President Park will be removed.
All right, Jean, aside of the legal issue, we don't want to get bogged down too much into law. Park supporters have been demonstrating. They've been angry. Some of them been talking about killing judges or civil war, if you read some of the banners. How much of that is real, and how much support does the impeached president really have?
It's been interesting. You know, these demonstrations have gone on for months now, and in the early weeks, the Saturdays were primarily anti-Park protesters, people who were from all walks of life, all ages, who expressed profound disappointment in the president. But in recent weeks, we've seen more of her supporters turn out. But this is a different demographic, quite a bit older, conservative, and perhaps pushing for different ideals. They are more concerned about the future of the republic. You're seeing a lot of American flags out there, which is interesting as well. So what they're afraid of is that any kind of liberal government coming in may erode the democracy, or erode the firmness of the government or their security.
So hang on, Jean, are you saying then that perhaps the impeached president has been able to claw back some popularity on the back of concern about the republic's future?
That is my impression. I'm certainly seeing quite a bit more, a little bit more of a pro-Park presence out there just up the street from the anti-park protesters. And this is something we've seen that crowd grow a little bit. It's significantly smaller than the anti-park protesters, and it's definitely a different demographic, and I think they're fighting to hold on to a very different type of Korea than perhaps the other camp. But they are just as diehard, and perhaps what you're seeing out there, and we're definitely seeing a little bit more of a rowdy face-off between these two camps, certainly outside the Constitutional Court today. And I was out in front of the Constitutional Court on Saturday, and it was a lot of riot police out there. So, but exactly what I was saying earlier is I think that this camp is trying to hold on to something a little bit different, and they are feeling more emboldened to try to protect the sense of fear that they have about what could happen to the republic if things change too drastically and if this power vacuum continues.
Well, Mr. Kim, do you think, I mean, how real is the potential then for what has been largely, you know, it's been peaceful demonstrations so far, but for that to turn into something much uglier? Are you worried?
Well, I am, first of all, very much against this whole demonstrations from the very beginning. Yes, it was peaceful, was good up to this point. However, it was peaceful only because the organizers wanted this thing to be peaceful. And I see a lot of flags from the Japanese labor union placard, etc. They even brought in from overseas Chinese and Japanese into these demonstrations. Now, the Gene was saying about this recent rising of the supporters of Park.
I'm sorry.
I think what is happening is because they see
demonstrators.
Let's give
political process.
Let's give Chung an opportunity. You wanted to say something. Go ahead, Chung. Hang on, Mr. Kim. We'll come back to you in a second.
I mean, this is a wild accusation that I've never heard of. I mean, that there's a large number of Japanese and Chinese demonstrators in these rallies. I mean, that's not something that I've ever heard of. Any reputable media source in Korea has reported.
Well, you can see on the videos, there are placards of the labor unions from Japan.
Right, but you're not suggesting, Mr. Kim,
labor unions from Japan demonstrating on the streets of Korea?
Ethnic Koreans from Japan.
Are you serious?
Some elements, definitely, yes.
Okay. All right, let's perhaps move the discussion along.
Well, I think, let me get back to the point. The reason I am not very pleased to see the American flags alongside the Taegukgi demonstrating. This is national issue, and no foreign flags should be around. But I think what is happening is so many of the anti-Park contingents, or even bringing up the issues like thought along with this oppositions, and some of the people are feeling this thing is anti-American military presence here, and that's why they're demonstrating it. But I think, as I said, it's a totally undesirable from both sides. I think the judges should be left to their legal process and left alone. However, because as I said before, the whole process of this impeachment is so nebulously defined by law. It is now being handled in a political process, and that's why some of the right-wing people beginning to feel that if it is left alone, the left-wing demonstrations or the influence, that's why they are now getting up.
Okay, I'm not sure we've heard it reported or any evidence has been shown that we've got Japanese demonstrators in those anti-Park demonstrations that have been taking place. But let's move on from that issue. And Chung, I'm wondering, how seriously should we take the opposition's threat to impeach now the acting president himself? And if that happens, where would that leave the country?
As for impeachment of acting President Hwang, basically there are two issues involved. One is the fact that if you look at the most recent polls, about 70% of the Korean public wants the special probe to continue, because basically it seems that 70% of the population views the special probe has done a really good job and would like to continue because, for example, they never really got to question President Park, even though President Park have promised that she should actually meet first with the prosecutors, Then she went back on her words, and then she said she'll meet with the special prosecutors, and then she went back on her words. And now she has refused to even appear before the Constitutional Court.
So Chung, are you suggesting that the opposition will feel
the
momentum is with them and they might be really serious about impeaching the acting president too?
They might be. I mean, I think the opposition parties are seriously worried about blowback, the possible pushback for a move that could be viewed as very radical. But at the same time, one thing you have to remember is that once President Park is impeached, Korea will have 60-day period to hold a presidential election to elect the next president.
Right.
And acting President Hwang will be basically controlling the government process to oversee the elections. Now, do the opposition parties feel comfortable with acting President Hwang actually being head of the state while the election is taking place? I think that political calculation is taking place.
All right, that's a good point for us to move to Jean with. I mean, if that is the sort of scenario we're looking at, it sounds like more confrontation, more polarization, and more division ahead for Korean politics.
I think it's going to be a wild couple of weeks. I think we're going to see a lot more protests on the streets. Saturday was a big day for protests because it was the 4th anniversary of President Park's inauguration, so significant day for people to be out there. We've got a national holiday coming up on Wednesday. This is March 1st is an anti-Japanese independence movement holiday, so we'll probably, it's a day off for people, so we may see some more protests in the streets. But we've got a couple of weeks here that are going to be pretty significant. I think when it comes to whether or not the opposition chooses to push for impeachment of the acting president, they have enough votes to do it. So it is, as John was saying, it's going to be a political calculation now. They have to weigh whether that is how it's going to play in the public, whether that's going to really support what their objective, or whether it's going to come back to bite them.
Oh, what do you think, Jean?
I suspect that they're going to threaten to impeach him as much, but perhaps won't go that far. But we'll see. I do think, though, that we will have some pretty big protests in the coming days, and perhaps in the coming weeks, as people make their kind of last pitches as this investigation comes to a close, the special investigation comes to a close, and as prosecutors take up where he leaves off, and as the Constitutional Court deliberates.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? The Constitutional Court is going to make its decision soon. Mr. Kim, do you think the president, whatever the Constitutional Court decides, can the president really make any comeback with so much of the public opinion opposed to her now?
Well, I guess there's been enough damage done. I don't know whether she can, even if she's exonerated at the Constitutional Court, I don't know whether she can act as an effective president. But however, I think we have to go through, respect the legal process, and we have to go through, see what the result is. And after the Constitutional Court makes the decision, what she will do has to be her decision, and I hope she will make the right decisions, whatever the decision is. But let me just jump in one thing. Now, they're talking
briefly,
about
please.
impeaching acting president. The impeachment, I'm sorry?
Yeah, briefly, quickly.
Impeachment should be a legal process. It should not be by the popular will. If impeachment is, in fact, this was one of the problems of the President Park's impeachment. Impeachment should have been investigation of the facts first, and then based on that, they should have taken the vote.
Okay.
They should not have taken the popular demonstrations, and based on that, it should not be impeached.
All right. My apologies to our guests. I know that we can talk more about this, and I'm sure we'll have another chance. We are waiting for that decision from the Constitutional Court, of course, so I'm sure we'll be coming back to this. For now, let's thank our guests, Hwang Chung-wook, Jean Lee, and Si Kim. And thank you too for watching. You can see the show again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle there is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Sami, Zeidan, and the whole team here for now is goodbye.